Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back to another episode of A/B testing. This is 4, which means we've roughly been doing it for a month, which, I mean, this is our last one in March, and we started in,
Wow.
yeah, we did it. We got through 1 month.
1 month of streams, and we did it.
Yeah.
Proud of us.
How you doing today, Bianca?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I was.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
No, I just Roberta Bowles asked who we were, and
Who we
so
were.
I wanted to thank you for throwing those lower thirds on. I'm Alex, joined by Bianca. Yeah, but how are you doing today, Bianca?
Doing really good. I think it's interesting that we're on episode 4, or do we call it episode 4? Stream 4? 4, just 4, the 4th. And just even seeing the progression that we've been on, and we had a recent conversation about this, but this pathway of starting from something from 0 and having it turn into something great. So I do like this progression of how we've been able to see something grow, and we didn't really have this deep idea for this is how this stream is going to go. So I think it's been really cool to just see how something that started as a stream 1 is now stream 4, and it'll be stream 200 and stream galore. And so I think that feels exciting.
Yeah. It is exciting. This is something that we wanted to do, and early in the year, we like set a date of starting, like March 5th or something like that. And we're just like, that date came and, we were both tempted to be like, well, what if we did it a little bit like later? What if we waited? And I was like, I think even it was one of us or Brent, and we're just like, no, we need to just do it.
It was you, Alex. It was you. I remember the voice in my head. Alex was like, no, let's just get on. I mean, that's not my Alex voice. That's not a great Alex voice, but you're like, no, we got to do it. And we have to just start. Let's just get on stream. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that reminder that it doesn't have to be perfect it's helped us to just start.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're trying stuff out. Last week was me coming straight off of a webinar and seeing if that was like, if we were going to get Q&A, which we, not as much as we would have liked, but we still had some awesome people in chat, which is great. Yes, just do the thing, as Robertable says. I like that. And then I like this one too. As Robertable says, being awesome at something starts with a small step, but being absolutely terrible at it. Hopefully we're not absolutely terrible and we're just like, this is fine. But it's starting at these small steps, and this is really exciting. And we're super lucky to be at a place where we like have the support of our teams and Brent and everybody else doing this. So we're excited, and I'm excited for what we have coming up today and in the future. I know, just like looking forward, we're starting to work with other people in the dev net to try to find some fun things to do there. And today we have something very special.
There are some people that might not know, like, what's the dev net? So what's the dev net, Alex?
The dev net is, I was trying to think of some like bad joke to go like, it's a network. No, it's literally the developer network. So here at Twilio, where developers are our main customers, we have a whole team of people that just makes the experience as good as possible for developers, right? It's the docs team, it's the blog team, it's the team that goes out and shows up at all the conferences. And then there's our team, which creates a lot of this video content and does a lot of virtual events. And so the whole goal is just to like make the experience awesome for developers, right? Developer evangelist. I take improv classes, and we were like doing a game where we were like trying to like come up with ridiculous job titles. And of course I just used my normal job title, and it was the things that people come up with are very funny because it's like a strange title, developer evangelist. But like the goal is just to like make the developer experience awesome. And so, we're here trying to do that. And I think the way we see this stream is as like a place to experiment and see what really resonates with you all in order to keep building the things that are working and kind of give us a platform to test. So we're especially working with a lot of the team of the developer evangelists to do that. Am I a cleric or a paladin? I would feel more like that's a really good question, Robertables. Robertables asked if, as a developer evangelist, am I more of a cleric or a paladin? I feel like probably more of a paladin, because I feel like I'm more sworn to the values of being a developer than I am to a specific deity. So I'm going to go with paladin for this one. Throw some divine smite when I make a hit. Sorry, D&D references there. Yeah, I D&D.
No, I thought it would be helpful since, not everyone might be super familiar with, DevNet, and we might use certain lingo. So if anyone ever in the chat is like, what did y'all say? What did you even mention? Definitely let us know, ping us, and we'll try to answer your questions as best as we can.
But I want to go back to Robertable's question about cleric or paladin. I actually feel more like a bard, if I'm being fully honest. I feel like I'm making a lot of performance checks here. So more D&D references. Bianca, have you ever played before?
I'm saying this on stream. I have not.
That's okay. Why?
I feel like I think maybe the sad face was I was reflecting on all the times I was invited to play, and I watched and I didn't. So I think in this moment I was like, I could have said yes to this moment, but past me was like, no D&D. So I was just like, but I have a lot of like folks that are just deep into
Yeah.
it. They love it.
I didn't get into it until my adult life. Like I was well into my 30s before I even played the first round or discovered it. Listened to professional comedians play because it's very silly. Um, fun thing for any parents out there, I don't know the name of it, but somebody gifted us it was like a rubbery D20 that my daughter loves to throw around because it bounces in every which direction and it's just a lot of fun. And there's a part of me that's like, can I use a D20 to parent? But I don't think that's a good idea.
Just iterating, just learning as you go.
Yeah. But yeah. So, but today we have a special show for you. So, one of the things that Bianca and I get to do a lot of, which we love, is talk to startup founders. And we do a lot of those. We kind of record some of those interviews, which is really exciting. If you haven't seen it, we did a whole series of them for the Transform Together event last week. That was a lot of fun. We interviewed a bunch of startups that won our AI Startup Searchlight. There were some really cool stories there. So I would definitely go check that out if you haven't yet. But we're going to share with you the first interview that we did with a startup for the two of us together. And it's a startup that is near and dear to my heart. It's a company called Ridwell. They'll explain a little bit more, but I'll give you a kind of a brief overview as well. I have a little, probably like 18-inch by 18-inch cube sitting on my front porch, and it's like a little basket. And every other week, somebody comes and picks up whatever I put in there, which is plastic film, batteries, light bulbs, clothes, other special categories that they alternate through. So it basically keeps all of these things that can't really be recycled out of the landfill. Mm-hmm. And they just have an awesome mission. I love seeing them, their boxes on a bunch of my neighborhoods, my neighbors' porches as well. And this all came about because they would send me text updates to be like, hey, your delivery's coming up, here's what you need to put out. And one day I decided to reply, and they actually responded to me, and I got super excited. And then of course I did the whole thing where I looked them up, and they're a Twilio customer. And from there, worked with them to have this awesome interview where we got to talk about their mission and how they use Twilio for customer engagement and all these other things. And I'm just really excited to be able to share that with you because we haven't really shared that too much. I've used it a little bit in some of my webinars, but we haven't shared the whole interview here.
Yeah, I also think it's great to invite other people even into that conversation too, around just, there was so much excitement when I started to learn more about Ridwell. I know Alex had already been familiar with Ridwell, but even for myself, being introduced to it, understanding their Twilio journey, their customer journey, I think it was really awesome to really just witness that. So really excited today that we get to share a bit more of that with you, and even just reflect on some of the things that we watched, some of the things that we're thinking about even today. So I'm pumped to see what we got.
Yeah. So what we're going to do here is the whole interview is about half an hour once we kind of cut out some stuff, and we split it up into 9 little bits, and we'll play a little bit, and then we'll come back and talk about it and kind of reflect. So that's what today's going to look like. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started and roll kind of the first clip, which is an intro. And we'll meet the people who we're going to be talking to, which is Justin, David, and Amanda, and hear a little bit more about kind of Ridwell's mission.
All right. Hello. Thanks for joining us today. We're super excited to be chatting with Ridwell. They're an amazing company with an inspiring mission. Using Twilio, Ridwell has created empowering, relationship-driven customer experiences. We'll hear from some Ridwell team members about their mission and customer engagement strategy.
Awesome. Thanks, Bianca. Let's get started by just getting to know you a little better. Can you please introduce yourselves and tell us what you do at Ridwell?
Justin Goff. I'm one of the co-founders and currently lead our expansion efforts in our new markets on the ops team.
I'll go next. I'm Amanda Alviso. I'm our member success manager.
And I'm David Dawson. I'm a co-founder and product engineer. I help people inside and outside the company use technology to find solutions to problems.
Sweet. And we have one tradition on the Twilio Developer Network, a very important question, cake or pie?
Pie. Every time pie.
100% cake.
Oh, I'm the tiebreaker. I'll have to go with pie. It's pie season. Thanksgiving.
Justin, I'm a cake guy too, so I feel you.
Yeah.
Wow. We are starting so well. Noted. Okay, so now that you've introduced yourselves, can you introduce Ridwell? Can you share more about just like what does Ridwell do and just like the why behind your work?
Yeah, so I'd say in short, we're on a mission to empower individuals and communities to waste less. That means making it easier to make more sustainable purchasing decisions, to make reuse more accessible and easier, and then finally to give people more access to recycle more things locally in a way that actually keeps things out of the landfill and builds a more sustainable future.
Like, how does that experience look for the customers?
Amanda can probably provide a better explanation than me right after, help fill in the blanks. But in short, we provide a subscription service today where when you sign up for Ridwell, you get a bin delivered to your doorstep. In that bin, we offer reuse and recycling opportunities for things that are hard to get rid of today that aren't provided by your city or your local municipal hauler. So for instance, we take plastic film, threads or clothes, batteries, light bulbs, other things like styrofoam, fluorescent light tubes, and paint. And we make it really easy to recycle it. We come to your house every 2 weeks. When you want to recycle it, you put it in your bin or next to your bin. And then our drivers go around the cities where we operate and come and pick it up, bring it to partners that are all US based. So US based vetted partners where that stuff will be truly reused or recycled.
You crushed it, David.
So I think if Ridwell is super successful at what they do, like what does that look like for you? What kind of world are you creating?
I mean, the best way to think about it for us, when our mission is to help people waste less. So we're already on the path to success where we have tens of thousands of members that are currently wasting less and learning about places within their own community where they can take stuff that's sitting in their closets or their cabinets or their garages and it can go to good use and be reused by someone else. And we'd love to do this at a much bigger scale, but right now we're already starting to accomplish that mission.
Awesome.
And what cities do you operate in right now?
We call it the greater Puget Sound area, but the Seattle area, which is our first market. We're also in Portland, Denver, Minneapolis, Austin, Atlanta, the Bay Area, and just opening up in Los Angeles.
Cool. So I understand that Ridwell grew out of something called Owen's List, Owen being Ryan, the CEO's son. And they went around Seattle and kind of just picked stuff up from different people's houses to keep out of landfills and had a big whole list of people who got things picked up. And then eventually Ryan brought on some co-founders, a few of which we have here. So can you tell us a bit more about the founding story and how this passion project kind of turned into the company we know as Ridwell?
It was Ryan's idea. It started as a small project between him and his son. And along the way, as he needed more help, like anyone that's starting something brand new, you can't do everything. He went out to his network of friends and found folks like myself or David or our other co-founder Alia to help with various aspects of the idea and the project. And it was successful and it worked and people really enjoyed what we're doing. And at some point, I think all four of us sat down at dinner and decided that we were going to do this thing full time. And we've been off to the races since then.
cakes are global. Pies are too, but then more of a cake person. It's cake. It's cake for me.
Give me a good chocolate cake, and I'm a happy person every day. I think we might have lost sound there for a second, but hopefully you guys are all there as we talked about cake or pie. Bianca and I both cake people, and I think this was some innocent question somebody asked in Slack at one point, and grew into a meme that to this day just reverberates throughout the DevNet for seemingly no reason, but it's great because
It was this actually. So one of the activities we did, we actually graffitied. This was legal, by the way. So don't. But we actually had we literally drew cake or pie, and it was great. So one of these days, I'll bring up the photo, but it was pretty awesome. That's how deep it was. Yeah.
That was a cool one. So back to Ridwell. I think the whole recycling story where they're looking for local orgs to recycle stuff is super cool, because I feel like we've heard a lot about how recycling doesn't totally work when they're I didn't realize this, but they used to just send all the plastic to China, and then China they were maybe recycling it or just dumping it, and they stopped, and now it's we're not sure what to do with it. So it's cool that they're finding local US based organizations to take care and handle some of these things. And what's cool is on their website, they have a featured category where they do something special every so often. So around Halloween time, it's candy. After the holidays, they do holiday lights or unused wrapping paper. And they do that all, but they usually talk about who's recycling it and where it's going, which is super cool, because it's usually some sort of nonprofit that's doing something cool with it or has some way of reusing it, and that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think even this connecting with folks locally allows you to just even understand this isn't just a Ridwell thing, that Ridwell isn't just invested in it, but really this opportunity that there's a lot of folks within the community that are all working together around this shared mission and vision. So I even think that incorporating those folks, incorporating a lot of those other organizations, really surfacing that, hey, we're all on this journey together. So I think that was definitely really cool to see. And even just they're navigating and managing so many different stakeholders. So there's just so many people that they're working with. So I think that was also interesting to see that how they're looping others into this conversation.
Yeah. Also, their founding story is a dream, right? Somebody just had a passion project that enough people were super excited about that let's build a company. I mean, everyone wishes they had that.
You're let's do it. Yeah. As I was listening to the founding story, Ridwell has gone through just so many different iterations. They've continued to experiment, figure it out. They tried something. They started off as one thing. And I even love this emphasis even around the progression, which it's so interesting because we started off talking about it. We didn't prime the conversation, but I think in every journey there is that progression. And I think the ways in which Ridwell has been able to adapt to the market, even the aspect of, hey, we're going to collect Halloween candy, right? So even just understanding what are the needs of the market, how do we meet people where they're at, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. It was actually even interesting because when I first reached out, it took me 6 months to actually get them to agree to sit down for an interview. And it was because they were they didn't want to grow too fast. They were focused on a few markets, and they were on their second or third round of markets, and they were there. And then, as we're talking to them, we're yeah, we're actually expanding a lot now. Now we're in a place where we can do this. So we even got to see that in our experience working with them on the back end here with this, which was super cool.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It was, watching it all over again, I'm Ridwell. It just, they've made something that can feel very daunting, confusing, just so seamless. And I think to really do that, that to me is just, they made recycling exciting and fun.
They did. And if anyone's curious, look out in Amanda's background. You'll see what one of those boxes looks like. I feel like she's got like the perfect Ridwell setup behind her. Sweet. Should we keep going through? I think the next video we're going to hear a little bit more about like the experience of a Ridwell customer and what that looks like, which will kind of set some context for how we're talking about their use of Twilio and their customer engagement throughout the rest of the interview. So full disclosure, I am a very happy Ridwell customer. That's part of how this all came about. And I've seen how well you do customer communications firsthand. Today is my Ridwell pickup day. Yesterday, I got a text reminding me to put my stuff out. I'm sure I'm going to get a text sometime during this call saying that somebody picked up my Ridwell stuff and that, thank you for keeping everything out of the landfill. But for everyone else who isn't a customer and hasn't seen the experience, can you kind of explain the experience that you create for your customers?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. So, like you were saying, we like to make sure that we're communicating with our customers and letting them know you have a pickup. We operate on an opt-in type service. So if you want us to come to your home to pick your stuff up, you need to opt into it, which you can do from your phone. We have an iPhone app, or you can do it from the dashboard online. And this really helps reduce our carbon footprint and ensures that we're not making unnecessary stops if you're out of town or you just don't have enough stuff for us that week. So we do make sure that we communicate with our members leading up to that pickup, the day of pickup, and then immediately after. But that's not the only time that we're communicating with folks. We're also communicating about what their next featured category is. Maybe we're coming up on the end of October, so we're going to have some featured categories of things like Halloween candy, which we can collect and make sure it goes to a good home, because nobody needs as much candy as they end up with on Halloween. And we communicate about those things too. That text line, when we send you that text and say, hey, great news, we picked your stuff up, you rock, thank you so much, you can reply to that text message too. And there's a real human being on the other end. It's not a robot. It doesn't just go off into nowhere. There's human beings on the other end of that who see that text message. So sometimes it's just like a quick, hey, thanks, we appreciate you. And we love seeing those because we appreciate you too. But sometimes it's also questions. We get a lot of, I have this really weird, obscure thing that I can't figure out what to do with it. Can you take this? Is this something Ridwell can take? And the hope is always that the answer to that is yes, we have partners for it. But if we don't have partners for it, we have a really great team of member success specialists who will help figure out what you can do with it. Is there a way to give that a second life? Or is it sadly one of those things that does have to go in the landfill? But that's what we're here for on the other end of that text.
Awesome. Yeah, I've experienced the two-way texting. I have this thing now, and I think you guys, I just tried texting back at one point, not expecting much, but working at Twilio, I was like, let me just try this. And you responded. So now every time I get an automated text, I try texting back, and it's very mixed results. So I love that about you guys. Yeah.
No, yeah. I think what's really cool, it's like, to me, it's just like very clear, like community and customers are like at the heart of what you do. So I think even just like digging a little deeper there, like how do you want your customers to feel?
Yeah, for sure, Bianca. I think you said it right there in the question that it's a community. I want our members to feel when they reach out to us the exact same thing that I feel when I log into work every day, which is I'm about to talk to people who I have something in common with. Like we all care what happens to this planet. We all care about keeping stuff out of the landfill. And that's what we really want our members to experience too when they respond to that text message or when they send us an email, that they're not in communication with a robot and they're not really even in communication with a stranger. They're in communication with someone from their own community who is trying to help them do the same thing, but we all have the same goal. It's just to make a better planet for today, but then also for future generations too.
Sweet. And ended on a nice filler word by me. I forgot to cut that part out. So am I the only one, Bianca, do you ever like reply to automated messages like you get via text?
I do. Sometimes I say stop. It's really to the the spam ones, but
Yeah.
but I do reply back because I think especially when it sounds so real. So I think those are the ones that get me because I'm like, wow, this sounds like a human wrote it. And then I'm like, it wasn't. So I think those are the ones that usually just like I get caught up on.
Yeah, I got one of the a band that I like a lot, Wolfpack. They have like a whole text thing. Of course, I signed up because I was like, sweet. And I tried texting back and it didn't work, and I was like, oh, that sucks. Like, there's a part of me that wishes I could talk to them, can't. But recently, they definitely had a little snafu where like everyone on their text list got like tests just sent to them. You got to be careful with these texting things.
Agreed. Yeah. I also think it's, it's as if I were to come to you and I'm like, hi, Alex. And then, you
And
say
then
so,
you're just
and
not
then
there.
it just,
Yeah.
just not there, just departed. You start going into this deep conversation. I think like that can be a little tough.
Yeah.
Not fun.
Well, it might be nice. It might be therapeutic just to talk to you, even if you're not listening. Could
That's
be good.
real.
So there's a few things in that clip that I really love.
Okay.
First of all, it's clear that they're like thinking about every aspect of this, right? They're trying to reduce the carbon footprint. I feel like so often we see initiatives that are trying to do good in the world, but they kind of like forget some part of it. I feel like you hear this when you like think about like, what's the carbon footprint of like Davos or things like that. Like, people thinking about that, but these guys are clearly thinking about every aspect of how they interact with the world, which I think is really great.
Yeah, I feel like it can easily be overlooked. So even the fact that they're saying, "Hey, our whole company is designed to waste less. So why would we waste our gas or, time or employees' time doing these routes, adding more emissions into the world?" And I think even the way that they're being they don't just want it to show up in their, at a high level, but I think even that whole like want this to be holistic, right? So I do really like how they were like, no, this needs to be a part of how we operate, how we work, and it needs to show up in our user experience. So I do like that focus on how does that show up.
Yeah. And they also talked about like their featured categories, and this is just me loving on their the business because it's so cool. But like, my wife is super happy that I've started to throw out some cords, right? And I get to recycle them because every once in a while they do electronics. And it was even recently I got a new like USB-C hub or Thunderbolt hub for my desk, and I had my old one, and I was like, I don't know if I can recycle this or not. So I text them, and they're like, yeah, throw it in with the next round of electronics that you give, which was super cool. And so I just I really appreciate the like, I don't know, when you like every few weeks have like a prompt to get rid of something special, it like you like go through and do stuff. And so like I have a few less cords in the random bins in my basement. I don't know if you have bins full of cords too, Bianca.
We won't talk about it. But okay, so I like the featured categories piece because I think it also reminds you of how waste can show up in your space. So even this aspect of recycling Halloween candy, I don't think, you don't think about those wrappers or a lot of those things as being waste, but it does accumulate and it's not being put to use. So I think even them expanding outside of what people typically have seen as recycling. So I think a lot of times it's recycle your plastics, but even getting a bit deeper, helping to guide people along that pathway and just giving people prompts. So I do like this aspect of leveraging prompts to help folks better understand, right? This is what we might want to recycle this week and making it a journey.
Yeah. There's also something to be said about like when you're trying to get your customers to do something specific, if you make it a little bit special, like I think it makes it more powerful. And that's what, in my mind, the feature categories really do is, oh, this week it's, shoes. I don't know if they actually do shoes or not. I'm just making that up. But like this week it's shoes. Let me go and see which pairs of shoes that I need to get rid of. Because it's only once a year they're going to come around and pick up my shoes. But if it was every week, I probably wouldn't think about it. But it being like, oh, it's the special thing that we get to get rid of now. Let's do that.
Yeah, I like that. It also allows you to be targeted, focused, and you're also not trying to do too much at once. And I do think when as a company you're asking a customer, hey, do this, can you sign up for this, also do this, and we offer this, you can start to really overwhelm. And I think by them just parsing it out, giving folks a little bit at a time, it does allow for folks to feel empowered on the process, not tune out. So I like that emphasis around, I like that emphasis around just, how they leverage those experiences for sure.
Yeah. And you just said something that's a great segue, which is feel empowered.
Oh.
So, they answered that question about feeling like what are the emotions that you're trying to elicit. And they said, feel like somebody's a part of the community and you're talking to somebody who's got the same missions and values as you. What did you think of that? And what are some ways that you kind of, when you're advising on great customer experience, kind of some of the emotions that you think should be present in that process?
Yeah, I think when you're moving into that digital space, a lot of times I feel like you're translating, hey, this is how we're operating in person. So I do think, how does that start to translate into that digital experience? So I think for them, it's, hey, we want you to feel like when you're talking to someone, when you're asking a question, that you're getting a response back. So even you asking, hey, do you recycle this? And you getting a response back, like that is a normal human interaction. So I think it should never feel like, I'm talking to a computer, but more so I'm talking to a company that's exciting to me. So I do like how that feeling around feeling connected. So even that aspect of feeling connected, how does that show up? Well, you could leverage two-way communication, right? To make someone feel connected, or feeling empowered. If I know, oh, wow, like I've pulled all the shoes that I could find or all the cords that I could find, that's another feeling of feeling empowered. I think what it is that you don't want to leave a bad taste, right, in your customer's mouth, or anyways, that might not be the best, whatever, but essentially you just want to leave a pleasant experience. And I think the more that you can think about, is this a pleasant experience for my customer, for the user, that goes a long way, because you don't want to be associated with, wow, that was, what a horrible time every time I have to interact with this company. Because I think about the excitement you had, Alex, when you were talking about Ridwell. So I could tell that Ridwell had delivered so many pleasant experiences for you that it allowed you to just have such an enthusiasm. So I think the more that companies can provide delight, it just allows the word to spread and the experience to spread.
Delight is such a good way to put it. And thinking about how you deliver that delight is really important. And they mention a lot of stuff, which is they want people to feel informed. They want them to feel close and like community, like we know who you are and we're here with you working through things. It's a lot of different things and ways of interacting that really create that delight and that experience, which is a great transition to our next clip. Because in our next clip, y'all get to hear about the first time I got frustrated with Ridwell and how they turned that from a negative experience off the bat to me being like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And this is why I love you so much. So let's go ahead and roll that. And you guys can hear my frustrated story that transitioned into love. I'm actually going to tell the story about the first time that I got frustrated with you guys. It was the first time that I tried to get styrofoam picked up, and there's this big orange bag and I filled it with a bunch of styrofoam and it didn't get picked up. And I was just kind of like, I'm like, why isn't this gone? What's going on here? And I texted the number. I said, hey, you guys didn't grab my styrofoam. And I pretty quickly got a response back being like, oh, let me check with the driver. And then, the driver said that you had some styrofoam that we can't take. It wasn't white, and it was the floppy kind, not the solid kind. And it went pretty quickly from being this like, I'm annoyed, to being like, oh, I get it. I understand what's happening now. Great. Thank you so much. And it just really created a great, it turned out what could have been a bad experience into a really positive one. And so I think that texting can sometimes feel static or impersonal, which leads to frustration and confusion, which is what happened to me at first. But you embrace two-way text messaging to get through this. So why does having a conversation with your customer matter?
Well, I think for a really long time, like if you think about any sitcom you've ever seen, when they have to contact customer service for something, no one's ever happy. You're picking up a phone, you're waiting on hold, it takes hours out of your day, and you're probably not happy with the end result. And that's really what customer service meant for a really long time. But we're not really in those times anymore. And I think we're really lucky to have services like Twilio that allow us to have that instant two-way communication. One of the ways that our member success team operates is we always have somebody stationed at what we call the top of our inbox, which is where the brand new messages are. So those things that come in that are really urgent, like your situation, my stuff wasn't picked up and now I'm really frustrated. It allows us to grab those things instantly and do an investigation. Is this something where maybe we had the wrong address for some reason and we thought we went by your place, but we actually were at the neighbor's house and didn't see it? It allows us to, because we do use texting with our drivers as well, to text that driver in real time and get an answer in real time. So you're not having to take time out of your day. You're not having to sit there with the phone up against your ear for hours on end, listening to just awful hold music and hoping that somebody answers before the call drops, because we've all been there and it's the worst. You can keep on with your day. You can be texting us while you're pumping gas, or you can be texting us between your own work phone calls, because life keeps going even when you have an issue that needs to be resolved. And that two-way communication allows our members to feel like this fits in to just their regular day. It doesn't have to be an inconvenience, for the same reason that they don't have to be inconvenienced and running all over town trying to make sure their styrofoam doesn't end up in a landfill. We'll come straight to you to do it. So it really all comes down to giving that convenience to our members, and that gives them kind of the power to ensure that they have the biggest impact.
I love that answer.
I'm
so excited to share that with, I'm so excited to share that with other startups to explain like why this is important and why this matters. So thank you for just doing it so succinctly.
We embrace human interaction, and on the operations side, if we show up at someone's house to pick up at their front door and they want to talk to us, we tell all of our drivers, stop, talk to them, have a great conversation, because we build this community one person at a time, and we build this community by actually having conversations with people and communicating with them, and not trying to outsource that to just automated messages or messages that are generated from a database of replies, and because of that, I think we see the difference. We see the difference between people with people sticking around and loving the service and telling all their neighbors about it, and growing in this way that I think a lot of companies would love to see.
Yeah, I just wish that everyone looked at customer experience the way they do, and the way that Amanda just said it, of fitting into your day. We have a comment here from Robertables that the real problem is better hold. We need better hold music. I feel like a lot of companies think that is the real problem. And if they just let you pick what kind of hold music you want, then you won't mind sitting there for an hour. Don't think that's the case, unfortunately.
So even that, like how long have you been on, what's like the longest time you've stayed on hold?
I don't know. I don't always have a ton of patience for that.
That's real.
So it's been a while since I've sat on hold for like hours for something, mostly because a lot of the places I would sit on hold have transitioned to some sort of messaging, like airlines.
Oh, yeah.
You can now message an airline and they'll get back to you. And hold on. Pull this guy up. Robertables, 3.5 hours. That's wild.
That was great. After the hour it became impersonal. Yeah. I think the longest I think I've probably done is around like 2 hour mark. But I think because of the callback, I will say the most hilarious callback is they called me back after like 11 hours, but it was for a flight. It was for an international flight. So I kind of needed them to solve my issue. But I will say the callback has been helpful. And
Mhm.
but yeah, that was definitely a long time. So it's more, it's more than the music sometimes. But yeah, I could 3.5 hours. That was
That's a lot.
dedication. It's dedication.
But don't you just love that switching the viewpoint from, oh, someone's calling us, we need to talk to them, to how do we fit into someone's day so that we're not ruining it for them?
Yeah.
That's such a simple transition, and it coming from a place of empathy, which is at the heart of how you create really any element of any startup is empathy. But especially with the customer experience, that empathy is so important.
Yeah, I also think about just that customer is coming to you because they're trying to solve a problem. They're trying to complete an action. So I do think giving them the opportunity to actually finish the action or complete it is it's in your best interest. You don't want to spend that much time on, hey, my customer can't reach their destination or my customer can't get their product delivered. It just takes away from the reason why they came to you in the first place. So I do think making sure that the customers can focus on the spaces that they care about and the moments that matter rather than spending so much time on being frustrated about styrofoam.
Yeah. And it happened in real time, which I think is super important. And
Yeah.
they were able to solve my issue, not like, oh, we'll get back to you tomorrow. It was like, we're going to work on this right now. And part of that's they just have the resources to do that and they can. A lot of other organizations might not have that. So that's pretty unique, but it creates a really great experience that it was both asynchronous and happening in real time. So it wasn't like asynchronous and now they're going to go deal with somebody else because I'm not on hold physically.
I
But
will
it
say
was, yeah.
I've loved the introduction of messaging in those conversations. So I actually even my eye doctor's office, I'll call them. So if I call them and they don't pick up, they'll be like, "Hey, we missed your call, but we'll get back to you. In the meantime, feel free to text us." So I think even folks that, "Hey, I may not be able to answer you in real time, but I still want to make sure my goal is to address your needs." So I think there's even that space too of while we may not always be able to respond in that time frame that the customer wants, what can you do to kind of help them get to where they're trying to get to or get the solution? So I think even that aspect of real time and how it flows in the conversation, there's I love the presence of how the tools can help support that. Yeah.
And texting is such a natural channel for that because, first of all, we all text with our friends. And sometimes you're in a conversation where you like expect a text back right away. That's real. But a lot of times you'll drop a text and it's asynchronous. Somebody will come back at another time. And think about the number of times that you've been on a customer support call and the person's like, hold on, I need to transfer you or I need to figure something out. That would all go away if it was just like, yeah, give me a minute. And then you could go do your thing. And then at some point they're going to text you back. It's just such a good tool for that. I even I'm in the market for a new e-bike. That's one of the things that I'm trying to get for myself this summer. And I text a bike shop and they text me back and they're like, hey, we're on a company trip this week, but next week come in and we'll have the bikes that you want to try. And yeah, like Roberta said, to be fair, sometimes when I call, it's because they only offer that's the only offered real-time method. If they had better async tools, I do that. That's exactly it. But I think the confusing part for me is it seems like on the other end, async tools would be better for the customer service people too. So what is it that we're so stuck in this old legacy way of doing things that we can't transition to something that works better for everybody, for the customer and for your employees?
But I do think going back into where is the customer at? So sometimes when I'm calling customer service, maybe I might be driving, or maybe I'm multitasking, right? So I do think the dependence on the customer to do a lot of the problem solving, there can be some tension there, because it's like, I need you to think about the context in which I'm reaching out to you. So, maybe I had 5 minutes to sign in to something. Asking me to go through this whole process that's now going to take 15 to 20 is much different. And also, I think sometimes as a user or customer, folks can feel like, I'm only going to deal with this once. Why do I have to be an expert in this particular issue? So I do think sometimes the customer is like, like sometimes I think the customer is just like, I just want someone to solve this quickly. Yeah.
This actually reminds me, this is a slight tangent, but I think it's related. It kills me when a company in theory has my phone number. Like airlines are a good example. Sometimes they know what flight I'm talking about. Other times they're like, what's your confirmation number? And I'm like, I don't know. My flight's tomorrow. You know my phone number. Figure it out for me. Or like when you're like trying to track down a shipment that's late and they're like, well, what's the order number? I'm like, I gave you my cell phone number. Like I'm calling you from that cell phone number. Please don't make me ask. Don't make me go look through my emails.
I do wonder though if, what comes to mind is the same way that one thing that I've actually loved that some of the airlines are doing is they'll have you do like a virtual sign-in or a virtual authentication in some ways, but it's still safe and secure. But there is also a part of me that's like, is there a low touch way that doesn't give too much customer information? That's like, hey, with your number, we've pulled up your upcoming flights or things like that. Yeah, like with your upcoming, these are the flights that we have associated at least within the next 24 hours. And I think starting to pull that data, they can do it over phone, and they've done it over phone. Like, hey, we've noticed that your next flight scheduled is to da da da. I do wonder, what does that look like to incorporate that even from a text standpoint? Because if I'm pressing the speakerphone, maybe I'm not remembering, maybe I didn't jot down, my confirmation number, but I wonder how they can start to move away from voice only, but playing around with both.
Yeah. That's a great point. It's how do you authenticate and make sure that it's both secure and you're making the customer feel known. Chef Brent mentioned USAA does a push auth app on the phone before they pulling the records. That's a great example, right? They have an app on your phone. They can authenticate that it's you. It's some sort of 2FA, because usually our phone number is the 2FA source. So, you got to keep it secure, but also like make it seamless. And I think that's really important. Back to Ridwell. That when he mentioned having conversations with your driver, I was like, that's so interesting. Do you think Amazon thinks of that with all the drivers they have going around? They're like, hey, if you see somebody, make sure to be nice.
Efficiency is all about efficiency. The numbers, the metrics. But I think as we're thinking about the metrics, the transactions, people are people. And I think we've let sometimes the metrics take the lead over, hey, you're still a customer. And so I do think even that aspect too of just reminding folks, like, we're human, this is a customer, and this customer is not just a payment, like, and so I think that desire to finish the job or complete or get a check mark, it can delay that. It can really take away from that desire to, that desire to connect with customers, connect to users, get excited again.
Yeah, and really thinking about every interaction as a touch point that matters. I have talked to my different drivers for Ridwell. I think I've had at least 2 over I think I've been a customer for like 2 years now. So that's not a lot of drivers in that time. And I recognize them, which is pretty crazy. They're nice. They smile, they say hi. I'm not having hours long conversation with them, but it's usually a quick thing. But the fact that they're thinking about that as a touch point, I think is really important and indicative of how much they care about the customer experience. And I don't think a lot of brands are doing that. And I think it's a missed opportunity.
Well, okay, so what do you feel like is the balance though? Because I think in this day and age, if your investors, if your whatever is looking for the data, the metrics, how many people did you deliver to, right? If that's the goal, or how's your revenue looking? I wonder the balance around being personal, but understanding that you can't often account for that on your metrics. So I don't know. What are your thoughts around like that balance?
I think that you're right that if it's purely about the numbers and that's all that you're looking at, it might not be the best thing, right? Get your drivers in and out, get them, 3% more efficient. All of a sudden you can hire one less driver per city or something like that, right? But I think long-term and kind of some of those non-tangibles are important. And I think in this day where a lot of people are trying to eke out businesses with very small margins, very tiny margins, it's really easy to look past that. And I wonder if kind of like from a capital standpoint, we like shifted a little bit to be like, okay, but how are your customers actually the stakeholders here? And how are you supporting them? That it might increase some of these in ways that we can't see right away. So I think long-term, those metrics will be there and will improve if you have a better customer experience. But yeah, it's hard because day one, you don't know how that looks. As a startup though, I think it's a little different because as a startup, the numbers are so small. The number of people we're interacting with. In the last round of interviews we did with the AI startups, I asked everybody like, what's a piece of advice? And Avni, who's the CEO and founder of Milo, said, start by trying to make a good service for 10 customers and then 100. Don't start by trying to make something that 10,000 people are going to use. How are you going to solve the problem for the first 10 people who are going to pay you? And when you start to look at it from that perspective, every single interaction with those customers matters because you're not trying to be the most efficient. You're just trying to find product market fit and figure out if this is something that you can do that's going to be valuable. And when you look at it from that perspective, I think it kind of changes where those metrics matter because so many of them are more subjective. They're more, they're kind of like those looser, like feel good metrics. They're not the like, what's our, rate of return on blah, blah, blah. And as a startup, I think you need to do that. And I think the part is that, or the sad thing is that we eventually lose that as we move from startup into bigger company, once you start to pull investors. And I would hope that people don't do that because I think it's really important. I think having a brand people love is so much more valuable than a couple of percentage points of efficiency here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are limits. So
I really like the comment from Robertables that you can get good data and metrics and growth by being good and making people happy. Happy people spend lots of money. And I love that reminder around those moments of delight pay dividends because I think about the great experiences I have. There are restaurants and I'm like, I want to go there all the time because maybe there was one time someone gave me like an extra, I don't know, like extra guacamole or, like the little things, or someone smiled. Yeah. Customer delight. I think about actually today I went to the grocery store. Everyone there said hello to me and they were literally doing other stuff, but everyone just said hello. And that simple action of, hey, we see you, you're shopping in our store, we want to acknowledge you. And I'm like, wow, that feels different. So it's interesting that delight as a differentiator essentially. And I do think it might seem as though companies are going to have to bring that back because anyone can deliver a product, but how are you delivering that product? And I think that how aspect, but one thing that I did like was how with Milo, they they taught, like they shared with you about scaling it out. So I do think even doing some observation around how did it feel when a driver spoke to a customer? What did that customer say? Or even just analyzing kind of some of those data points from those moments of, hey, did you talk to our customer or did you not? And seeing even some of the trends with those customers that drivers spoke to or not. So yeah, I think, I think I think we might see some shifts for sure.
I also, as you were saying that, I was like, oh, that's going to be a lot easier once you like put AI on top of everything, because it's really a lot easier to analyze sentiment and to understand and see what's going on without, having to have a human listen to everything and be like, oh, that person was happy, they had a good interaction. So let's keep going through these videos. The next video we're going to see is going to talk about why they use Twilio. So, we got to get those Twilio plugs in there, but why they use Twilio and how that helped them grow.
I know you kind of skimmed over just using Twilio, but can you just kind of expand around like why messaging? Like what were some of the business challenges for you at the time that you were trying to tackle? So I heard customer service support, but what were some of those other business challenges that you were navigating that made you go, okay, Twilio?
As a startup, one of the big things that was key to us was finding something that's flexible and lean that would work with all of our existing tools. So, we didn't have some big integrated customer ticketing system. We had something that was easy to communicate with people directly via an email inbox. And so we wanted something that would play nicely with that. We wanted the ability to easily trigger texts to our members when we completed a pickup so that they knew what happened and we could communicate with them. Twilio really fit that space of being able to have lower level access to things, like we could hit the APIs to send texts when we wanted to whom we wanted, but also it was pretty established and had existing integrations with a bunch of existing systems. So it found a nice balance there. And then Amanda also alluded to this too. I'd say that, the big thing about text messaging, it's in a lot of ways the most universal and efficient way to communicate to a lot of people. She mentioned we don't use SMS just with our members and to have two-way conversations with them, but we also use it with our drivers. When a driver's out there on the road at somebody's house or trying to figure out which house to go to, and we need to get in touch with them, we want it to be as easy as possible. They don't want their phone to load up some web page and some form to fill something in. We just want them to be able to send a text. So we thought about that early on, and Twilio made that possible and made that easily. Our drivers on the road can, if they're having trouble with our routing software with connectivity, they can get a text with their next few addresses to take care of them. And they can also, if some problem happens at a house or with construction or something like that, they can immediately text our driver success team and get help from somebody who's more centrally located. So yeah, I don't know, I mean, went off on a tangent there, but in general, Twilio, filled that gap of mixing with a lot of things, allowing us to do what we wanted to do. And yeah, was lean and flexible.
Can you give us a brief overview of how you built with Twilio? Like, did you use the APIs directly? Did you go through like somebody, like a third-party vendor? Like what was that process like for you?
Early on, we knew we wanted to communicate with people. Our team was lean and small, and we weren't sure an app was the right way to go. And so we used Front originally, which is a customer service tool that integrated well with Twilio, and that helped us on that initial set of messages that we're sending people, because we didn't automate to begin. We did everything. We did everything the painful and hard way by hand, and then that helped us understand, okay, here's the things that we're doing. Here's how we can then use the API to automate, whether it was thank you messages or notifications coming up for pickup. So we'll use any tool that uses Twilio as long as it fits into the workflow of our team.
They mentioned two things, which are, I just held up 4 fingers, but 2 times, which are the reasons that I have a lot of fun working with Twilio. One is SMS and our phones in general are such a universal communication method that it's the only thing you don't need to install on a phone, right? There's no app to install. Texting is there typically. And second, you kind of don't need to think about the plumbing of texting. You just need to make an API call, and we all know how to make an API call. So he highlighted those two things, and I think they're just such keys for why it's fun to work at Twilio and be able to provide the service to people.
Yeah, I think the other piece that really stuck out for me was the ease when he spoke about just ease and flexibility. So I think as you're mapping out what is an ideal experience, sometimes you have a sense of where you're trying to go, but at times you don't. So I do think being able to really arrange the experience for what you need for it to look like, to add the pieces that you need to, take away things that you don't. So I love that emphasis around flexibility, ease, and even the enthusiasm that Twilio might not be the only tool that you're using. So how do we allow it to supercharge other tools that you're leveraging? So I think, especially as a founder, ease, flexibility, you're investing time, energy, and resources in making sure that you have the right solutions. And I think having the right solution during multiple parts of your journey is so clutch. So yeah, really enjoy that.
Yeah. And not only that, but the idea of starting manual before you automate. I think as like a tech person, I have this tendency myself, which is like, oh, I can code that. But sometimes you're coding the wrong thing that you don't really know that that's what your people want. And so I love that idea of start manual, figure out how things are working, and then automate from there. Roberto Bowles mentioned something that he likes to call pain-driven development, which is, when you learn why automation is a good thing. But the one caveat there is you don't want to do it prematurely, because then you're going to automate things that you don't need or don't need to be automated and kind of waste time. So I think there's that balance of you got to figure out how to run those experiments in a really great way. And a lot of times manually, a lot of times creating that pain so you can see what pain is actually worth it. What is going to actually drive a better experience for your customer or a better experience for your bottom line as a company, and get people, in and doing things so that you're building the right stuff. That's such a hard problem in startups.
Yeah, I also think understanding the specific pain point allows you at each stage to understand like what you're solving for. Because I think sometimes you're like, oh, this person can't get through to us, but there might be a different reason, right, why that's a pain point. So I think even just getting specific, understanding from a manual process, why is this an issue? How are they arriving here? And it might look different at different stages, but I think that manual process allows you to better unearth and understand what are we actually solving for. And I think when you don't necessarily know like what you're actually solving for, but instead you're like, hey, let's put a Band-Aid on something, I think it's not sustainable. So I think really creating those sustainable solutions is, helpful.
Absolutely. And I think that's actually a good segue into even the next clip, which is we're going to hear a little bit about the metrics that Ridwell uses and how they think about the numbers. Because even though we said we should go beyond the numbers are still important. We can't forget about the numbers.
So when you think about like just the metrics, right? So, yes, we know how it feels, but I think what were some of those metrics for you that saw like just an improvement, right? With say Twilio's offerings, whether that's messaging, what have you. Like how did you know you were doing a good job, right? Like what numbers were telling you like, okay, we're doing all right?
I think on the member success side, one of the things that we see is we consistently have a customer satisfaction rating of over 98%. And that number is great, especially when you consider very infrequently do people reach out to a customer service line because they just want to chat. They usually have a problem. So sometimes people just want to chat, and we're here for that too. But by and large, people have a problem, and that's why they're reaching out. And to have over a 98% satisfaction is huge. And I think a lot of that when you read through the comments, both in that and our Net Promoter Score is also very high as a result of people saying you're easy to communicate with. And to give credit where credit's due, our drivers are a huge part of that. Like Justin was saying earlier, like we encourage our drivers to have connections with the members that they encounter and with total strangers that they encounter on the street too. Tell them about the service. The other side of that is when something does go wrong or when they do have a question, they know that they can reach us. We're just on the other side of a text or an email, and text is by and large one of the main ways that people get in touch with us because we're already texting them. All they have to do is hit reply. They don't have to go search for the phone number. It's right there in their phone because we were just texting with them anyway. So I think when I look at numbers of satisfaction from a member standpoint, those numbers don't lie. But the other side of that is internally, how happy are people? And because we do use texting with our drivers as well, our drivers are happy too, because they know that we have an entire dedicated team for them to text and say, hey, you know what? It's really hot today. And I'm feeling a little nauseous. What should I do? Our driver success team is trained to help walk them through the steps they need to take to get safe, to get cool, to get water, to take breaks and do all those things. So our drivers feel supported. If they have a flat tire while they're out driving, being able to text our driver success team and know that they had instant support, like literally instant, in seconds somebody responds to them. I think internally we're really happy using it as well, just because we know that we're able to stay connected.
I love that you see this whole communication journey not just as external, but also internal, and keeping everybody inside happy and seeing, your drivers especially, which are in some ways the face. I mean, it's who people see, making sure that they're still happy too and engaged, which is, I think that's super cool.
As Amanda talked about, our surveys, text messaging is always a frequent thing that members bring up, saying what they love. I know over 90% of our members are opted in to receive text messages from us. That doesn't happen unless people want those messages. That's because people appreciate, I think, the communication when we show up at the door, telling them what we picked up and when we're coming, and keeping them in tune about that. I know one additional story along the metrics journey from the product side is, to get your Ridwell pickup, I think this came up earlier, you actually have to use our mobile app or website to opt into it. So you have to let us know that you want us to come, so we make sure we don't make a wasted trip. One of the big metrics we track is the opt-in rate. So the percentage of people that opted into their pickup on a given day. And a while back, I remember, we used to only use emails to let people know that their pickup was happening. Like, here's an email reminding you to come to our website and opt in. And we noticed, our opt-in rate's pretty good, but it could be higher. What if we introduced text? So we added a feature where if somebody doesn't open their email and it's the day before their pickup, we send them a text message. And, that notably bumped up the opt-in rate, up the engagement. So, I don't know, that's an example of, I guess, another metric that we are able to drive through text messaging. I think that just makes it clear that, everybody has their own way they like to communicate. A lot of people are used to communicating by text, and it's been effective for us.
That explains why I get a They said something, which is an example that I use a lot when I'm talking to startups about should they be using email or SMS, which is that whole looking at what the opt-in rate was when they were communicating between those two. So I just think that's so important to run experiments and see how things are different when you're sending emails versus SMS. Because if you look at pure ROI, email's cheaper. And a lot of people do email for that reason. But we also need to do texts in order to make sure that we're reaching more people, because a 90% opt-in rate for text messages, that's huge. We at Twilio believe, and it's hard to measure because you don't really know how many people are reading it, but there's numbers floating around that it's in the high 90s for how many people actually look at every text that they receive. And that kind of open rate is unheard of in email. It's so high. And that's just always so great to know that there's a way to reach that many people without an issue. And another thing that they mentioned, as well as Bianca keeps trying to figure Bianca's back. Woo! I was just talking about the value of text message because it has such a high open rate. And
Oh yeah.
that experiment they ran where it's like looking at opt-in rate for email versus SMS. I use that example all the time in almost every talk I give.
Yeah, I mean, the text messages to me, the amount of data you can just get from, that feedback, or even people wanting to hear from you. Like, do people want to to hear from you? So that, I think, the data points that you can even get from that, so it can kind of make metrics exciting, you know?
Yeah, it really can. And you mentioned, do people want to hear from you? And I think there's a big difference between like some of the transactional things like appointment reminders or pickup reminders versus the marketing emails or texts that you're getting, which is a great reason to be very careful about how much marketing you're sending out. Because if you are doing both over the same channel, you might lose people because you're trying to market to them when you could be having great customer interactions with them around transactional. And sometimes those transactional things can almost be marketing-y because they're getting a customer to buy more because they're having a great experience.
Yeah, it's I think as I'm listening to these things, I was like, metrics, can they be fun? Can they be exciting? I'm like, whoa, metrics, excitement. So yeah, I think even just like you said, not overwhelming folks. But the great thing though is that you're able to get that real-time feedback because customers will let you know. They're like, yeah, this is too much. This is not working for me, or please unsubscribe. So I do think even that ability to get real-time feedback from your customers and your users around how their experience is going, that's super helpful.
How many companies do you think are tracking internal happiness?
Literally, I think even redefining, I don't think a lot of companies are looking inward. It is, I will also say it's hard. It's hard to really get a pulse, and so many resources. I think also people underestimate the power of employee happiness. And even if you think about it, okay, for the Ridwell example, right? That driver is a customer's interaction with your company. So you should make sure they are very happy because they are essentially representing you. But I think sometimes companies can forget that their employees represent the company, essentially,
Yeah.
right? That a person is not going to be interacting with the product all the time, but they are also interacting with people in a variety of ways.
Yeah. It actually makes me think about why I love working on the DevNet at Twilio so much, which is a lot of us are the face. And I think the culture across Twilio is really great. And people I know who work in other spots in Twilio have an awesome experience too. But on the DevNet, I feel like it's especially great because we're the face. And so there's a little bit of need to make sure that we're happy and excited about Twilio so that we can go out there and evangelize and be happy and excited about Twilio to other people. Because if we were all just like sad and miserable and unhappy with our jobs, it would show through on all these things that we're doing customer facing. There's no way that, Bianca, if you and I weren't happy here at Twilio, we'd be on here laughing and smiling and having a good time and talking about all these things that we're talking about. So we're just a great example of that. If you keep people happy and people enjoy what they're doing, you're gonna see that externally. And I think that's really something we lose.
We're getting excited about two-way communication. If that's not, employee happiness, like I'm like, wow, who knew? But I do think when you're starting to engage with the power of what you can create, how tools like Twilio help you augment your vision, it does bring a level of delight. And I think even as an employee feeling like, wow, I'm contributing to something that helps people build, that I enjoy building with, right? So I do think that aspect of employee happiness is such a great barometer, because it just shows how are not just your customers interacting with your product and company, but how are your employees interacting with your company.
And
so.
I'm even a great example of this. I went from working with robotic arms, which is like the coolest thing in the world, to sending text messages and making phone calls. And I love it here. And it's a lot of it's like about the culture. And I think a lot of it too is about what you're enabling your customers to do, which is why I love this Ridwell example so much. They get to create amazing experiences because the tools exist for them to create those amazing experiences. And we all know what a good customer experience is and a bad customer experience is. And I just hope the whole world can create better customer experiences, because that's a better world for all of us. So, we're there. Do you have anything else on this from that list clip, or should we keep going?
I think let's keep going. I think we're on a good roll.
Sweet. So the next thing we're going to hear about is, we went from talking about feelings to then going to talk about metrics. Let's get back to the feelings. So we're talking, and we're going to hear a story from Ridwell about why or how kind of the texting and two-way communication really solved a problem at some point. I just want to open the space here to go beyond the metrics. And you already shared a few stories, but are there any other, stories that you have of like really like things maybe you even use internally, or when you're telling a story of how you do customer experience, just like some stories that you want to share on this topic?
I have one I'll share that was actually recently, I think probably within the last month. One of our drivers actually lost the key to their personal vehicle. Their little key fob must have fallen out of a pocket or something like that when they were en route. And I was able to pull all the members from that route and shot them all a quick text message and was like, this is what the key looks like. If anybody finds it, let us know and we'll swing back by. And sure enough, within like an hour and a half, somebody was like, oh, I found it in my front yard. I'll set it on the porch for you, which those key fobs are like really expensive. So aside from the fact that our driver was able to actually drive themselves home that night, which was great, it was really a great reminder of how our members really do feel like they're part of a community with us. And we got so many responses from people who didn't find it, but said, I just went outside and I looked and I couldn't find it, but I'll keep an eye out. So people really cared. And it was a really cool opportunity to see that sense of community come together, that driver was like basically a friend to those members, and they didn't want to see that driver go without. And it was just a really cool opportunity to see text messaging being used in a different way that still really built that sense of community between our drivers and our members.
Can you share another experiment that you've run of like something you've tried as far as how you interact with customers, and did it go well or not? And like, how do you know if it went well?
We actually kind of have one going on right now. So coming up in November, we're going to be doing what we call Green Friday, where we're actually going to be offering for purchase some products that are made from items our members have given us. And it is a truly circular creation of products made from denim that people recycled in threads, and multi-layer plastic that's being turned into flower pots, and skis that we collected that are being turned into earrings. Like really, really cool stuff. Like it's wild, the things that are being created. And these things are being created like right here in the United States with local folks who are making these things. And it's a really cool thing that we're doing, and we've never done it before. So the whole thing is kind of like a test to see, how far can we take sustainability? How much can we make? Because it isn't just, can we responsibly recycle this? How can we reuse it too? So part of that is we're actually offering our members an opportunity to get early access to those products by signing up for text messages. And if they sign up for those text messages for certain products, they'll get an early access link the day that the product launches. So before the site-wide launch happens, they'll get an early access through that text message. And so I think that first round of emails went out this last week, and we're already seeing like literally several thousands of folks are signing up for this early release text, which is really, really exciting, and could potentially open up the doors for more of those opportunities to really reuse products.
So I don't know how that experiment went. I almost want to go follow up with them and figure it out. But I do know that everything sold out that they had tried. And it was some pretty cool stuff. So that experiment was cool. But I think the bigger piece there for me was how the company really makes it feel like a community. I think a lot of companies would be afraid to send that text that like, hey, we're going to bug all of our users with a marketing email because somebody lost their keys. Like, go figure yourself out. But instead, it was a data point and a way for them to create more of a community feel with all their customers. That's just so cool. That's just such a cool use of this.
Yeah, I think especially as we think about tools like AI, and sometimes folks are like, oh, AI is taking away the humanity of things. These moments bring back that humanity that we can incorporate in the experience. So I think really just hearing that story around the key is like, hey, we're still humans. Someone lost a key. Let's help them find it. And we're not so focused on the product and just delivery. But again, like you said, this is a community.
Mm-hmm. And the hope with AI in my mind, and I think about this a lot, especially having kind of the background in robotics and AI and think about like, am I automating jobs and is that a bad thing? Is that it gives us more opportunity to be more human because some of the other stuff is just figured out. And if we were in a world where somebody was physically texting everybody, they probably wouldn't have bothered to do that, to like pull the list and send, another 100 text messages. But because these tools existed, it was really easy for them to go and do that, which I think is super cool.
1,000%.
Robertable's asked a question, which I is a cool one. What is one of the primary pain points you get from early startups when it comes to Twilio and understanding how they can use it? That's a really great question. There's definitely some technical things about like, how do we actually implement this? But most of the content that I am making around Twilio Startup Labs is about what is the experience you're trying to create. It's not something that people think about all the time. And I feel like there's this gap where in the beginning, you find a way to communicate with your customers, and sometimes it's giving them your personal cell phone number because you only have 10 or 100 customers and you can do that. But then how do you figure out how that scales and how do you recreate those experiences that people are having? And so a lot of what I do with the education, and I know Bianca, you do this too, is figuring out what are the tools available so that you can create these really amazing experiences. So it really is about inspiring awesome ideas for experiences. And I think a lot of the technical stuff is there. We have so much great documentation and examples and blog posts. Although I do often try to write blog posts to be like, here's an easy way to do X, Y, or Z, because it's just help inspiring. So in my mind, for early startups that are using Twilio, it's about thinking through the customer journey up front and getting inspired on how to create a great one so that you're not solving for that after you've already got your customers, so that it's a foundational level in the startup that you have. What do you think about that, Bianca?
Yeah, I think for some folks, there's definitely the aspect of, hey, we do more than text messages. And I think for so many folks, they come here because they're like, hey, I just need to focus on messaging. But then they have these other issues and they're like, man, I wonder where I could find a solution around maybe security or all these other pain points that they have. So I do think being able to help folks understand, hey, this is where Twilio as a whole fits into your customer journey, and making sure that they're aware of when and where it's needed. So I think that definitely has been a space around, oh, wow, like I didn't know that you offer this, or I didn't know this was connected to your service, or how do we incorporate this with things that we're already using? I feel like I hear a lot of times, oh, does Twilio work with this? Because, we don't want to switch over. So I do think the more that that's definitely been those have definitely been two spaces that I've seen a trend on with founders.
Yeah, and a good way to put that, which Robertable's also mentioned in chat, which is thinking about it from the standpoint of a solution architect. A lot of startups are too small in the Twilio universe to get a dedicated solution architect. So a lot of what I do as well is an office hours program where I'll talk to startups about, hey, here's a way to think about building this out. I can't dedicate as much time to every startup as I would like to do this as a solution architect would, because that's their whole job. But just getting them started and being like, here's some docs, here's how to get started, I think is really valuable. So definitely coming at this from a solution architect standpoint. And as Bianca mentioned, think of it holistically as all the different things that we can do. And speaking of thinking holistically, the next video we've got, which is our second to last video, is talking to Ridwell about how they keep focused on sustainability and kind of what their mission is. So let's go ahead and roll that one.
Sustainability is something a lot of people have a lot of views on. They're very passionate about. So how are you prioritizing? Like, how are you thinking about like what you want to do next, what you focus on? It is something that people bring their own perspective. So I would just kind of love to hear, how do you think about prioritization?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's always a challenge, finding balance at a startup. Broadly, I think we really want sustainability to be more accessible to more people. We want to allow as many people to waste less as possible. And so I'd say for us, it's a balance between, launching in new areas, like Justin mentioned. We're trying to get service live to anxious residents of Los Angeles today. We're trying to explore new partnerships. So we're always looking for what are things that you have a hard time recycling locally, which local partners might be able to serve that. And we always start there. We're not going to pick something up without a good place locally to bring it. So expanding our service offering by finding new partnerships is another thing that we're balancing. And then I think one thing that's not so obvious is we're always trying to find ways to go further up the chain. We dream of the day where we don't have to collect plastic film anymore because the stuff isn't created in the first place, right? So you said sustainability means a lot of things to a lot of people. Yes, a lot of our service today is recycling, and I'm sure that will be a big need for a long time, and we hope to help fill that need. But we're always thinking about ways that we can build new partnerships or provide solutions to our members that, that I guess solve the problem. It's a huge problem. There are a bunch of possible directions to go, and so it's probably a indirect answer to your question, but yeah, it's a balance. More people, more partnerships, and think about sustainability broadly, not just in terms of recycling. A couple of things.
Totally. Anything to add, Justin?
Going back to what we talked about earlier with community, the really interesting, not really interesting thing, but because the interesting thing about people is everyone has a job, right? In their real life, and they come to us and say, hey, my company does this. We could partner with Ridwell on this, or my company could use Ridwell in our office. And so we hear so much from the community of our members. And really for us, it's editing down. And I wish we, had the bandwidth to take on every single opportunity that's come our way. But, in any world where people are starting a business, we have found a thing that works, picking up from people's, from single family homes. And so the priority is always like, how do we expand that service to more people? Because that's how we can have the biggest impact the quickest. But along the way, as we run into more people, whether they work at a city, whether they work at a company, everyone has these different experiences, and they start to help us see where we can fit in other aspects of their life, which then, ideally brings Ridwell to more people.
I feel like this clip, more than almost any other, exposed how complicated their business is, right? It's a multi-sided marketplace, right? They not only need to find people to pick up stuff, they need to find a place for it to go. And they need to stay focused on the product market fit that they found. I think that Justin in that clip was alluding to, like, you could do this for businesses, but they found that their market is single family homes. So while figuring out how to expand, they also need to stay focused. And it just brings up how complicated a startup can be. And you know, filling that niche isn't just about like, oh, we found one thing that works, let's go. It's about continuing to grow and like spread out in really interesting ways.
Agreed. The other thing too, I really that was interesting was how they think about impact, and that impact doesn't only have to come from them and the role of partners in that conversation. I think one of the things that stuck out was that in each and everything that they were saying, it was we want to drive an impact, and impact looks different at a variety of places. And the other piece too that stuck out to me was definitely this aspect of the problem that you're solving and what exactly is that problem. And if you think that the problem is I need to help people get rid of waste versus what is our relationship to waste. And so I do think the problem expands, you get clarity as it progresses, but I think those are a few things that definitely stuck out in that last clip.
Yeah, and what you just brought up, David said something that was really, in some ways, counterintuitive to me, which is it's not all about getting people to like recycle more, but he's like, how do you stop the plastic from being created in the first place? The sustainability would literally, if everyone did it, put them out of business. If everyone didn't have these plastic things, they wouldn't need to be there. But they're still thinking about that because the mission comes before creating this business that is maximizing revenue, which, you know, Ridwell is probably unique in that, which is pretty cool. But when I heard that, I was like, oh, if everyone stopped using plastic, what would Ridwell do? But that's still part of Ridwell's mission, which is kind of wild to think that their mission's almost to go out of business one day because everything's so sustainable.
And I love how focused they are on their mission, and it shows up in everything that they do. And like you said, I don't know that I think about a lot of folks anchoring, like really anchoring, especially in that space, right? Anchoring on our mission, and we have to make sure we hit our mission. And it's hard because you start to get other priorities, you start to have other things that pop up, but I love that their commitment to the mission is so just steadfast.
Yeah. I think we all wish we could be this mission driven, which Roberta said really well. It'd be so good to have a business that fits there, and do something that is so mission driven. I mean, that is not easy, and that is pretty unique in the world at this point. And so one of the reasons I love talking to Ridwell. And this next clip talks even more about that, right? It's about staying motivated and optimistic in a world where there is constantly more waste being created and it feels like it's a bigger and bigger hill to climb.
It's not fun to see all this waste, right? You got into this work because of a problem, right? So I guess I'm wondering, how do you keep yourself optimistic? What are the lights, right, in the work that you do, but like what kind of keeps you going in this work? Because you are in conversation with how much work there is to do, but yeah, what keeps everyone going?
There's very few things in the world that everyone agrees on. And I think if you ask 100 people, 100 people will tell you that recycling is a positive thing for society. Where people differ is how much extra and additional effort they will go through to actually do that recycling. Some people don't want to do anything. They want it just to happen for them. And other people will drive across town and or hopefully some frugal, so they don't have to drive across town to get that stuff. And so to me, it's just a matter of connecting to more people. You know, I was on vacation this last weekend, and I was in Las Vegas, and I saw so much opportunity on the airplane to recycle, in the hotels, at the concert I was at. And so to me, that's what keeps me going, because we're doing a thing right now that works really well, but that's the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. And once again, it's not a new idea. People want it to happen. The problem is so large. No one knows where to start. And so we're hoping to be that starting point for most people, and to keep expanding and growing in that way.
Yeah, it's absolutely those conversations with people, with members. I walk my dog and I get to pass 20 Ridwell bins in my neighborhood. And it's something to connect with people over. Every time you hear and just see someone, every time I meet someone that's like, you're pitching it, you're signing up for our service and paying money to get a box to help recycle more things and create a more sustainable future for everyone. It's incredibly motivating and cool. It's the same thing with drivers as well. Every time I get the chance to talk with our drivers and hear about ideas for how we could do more, other additional things we could recycle, things that they've heard from members and want to try. Yeah, it's having that mission we all rally around is really, really what keeps me going.
I'll echo all of that. We just celebrated our like 5th birthday or anniversary. Birthday? We just celebrated
Hey.
that. And we sent an email out to all of our members letting them know just like what that impact has looked like in 5 years. And just in plastic film, we've collected over 6.5 million pounds of plastic film, which like plastic film doesn't weigh anything. Think about your grocery bags. That doesn't weigh anything. And that is wild that this group in 5 years in just a handful of major markets has been able to save that much plastic film. That's wild. And it's true that anytime I talk to somebody who's new, like I have a friend who just recently started service and she was mind blown by how much she was keeping out of her trash. And I had the exact same experience. I went down to maybe 1 bag of trash every couple of weeks because there was just that much stuff that was going in landfills. And that is a motivator that when it changes the way I grocery shop, like what can I buy that's going to reduce the amount of stuff that I have to put in my trash can? That is huge. And changing the way you see things and knowing that other people have changed the way they see things as a result of what Ridwell's doing is just, it's exciting and it's humbling. And sometimes it's a little sad when you see just how much stuff is out there, but it's the type of sad that keeps you going and keeps pushing you in that right direction. And knowing that we do have such a tight community of, yes, employees of Ridwell, but then also our members. We have such a tight community of members who care so much about where their stuff goes. And that's growing. And so while it can be really discouraging sometimes to see just how much stuff that there actually is, it's also really exciting to know that this many people care and that number is growing.
One thing I noticed in particular in that clip is that there were 2 different ways of judging success. The 2 founders were like, I have all these great experiences talking to people, and it's the one-on-one communications and those experiences that drive me to do this. And then the customer success manager, who talks to people all day and has given us a ton of different examples of where it's about the personal thing, also pulled the numbers of how much they're keeping out of the trash bins. And I think that just shows how both of these things are important, right? You need to think about the metrics that you're using it and how are you showing success from a number standpoint. You also need to have stories to tell. You need to be able to show that like it's a good experience to talk to the people who are your customers that love what you're doing. And so that was just such a cool example, seeing both sides of that, seeing people say why they love this from both angles.
I also enjoyed even this aspect of being intentional and mindful in that it's in these micro moments that change can happen, right? So even, hearing those mentions of when you go to the grocery store, what are you buying? I mean, as I sat here, I was like, wow, I have a lot of bags. And I definitely try to, be as thoughtful, but I do think it's those micro moments that you're able to incorporate that change. So even just how does it look? I just love that aspect of, we want to put ourselves out of business in some ways, and that we want to do the actions that push ourselves, our customers to waste less, just generally speaking. So yeah, that definitely resonated with me a ton.
And I think thinking back to my days in the startup world, if you have a mission you believe in, you have so much more power to push through hard times. And if your mission is like this, you know, if they're selling widgets or whatever it is, if things get hard at some point, you're just gonna be like, I don't want to do this anymore. And you're gonna back off. But when there is something bigger that's driving you, I think that it makes it so much easier to keep going. And I think that that's something that we kind of, you know, in this world, we're very money motivated, and there's a lot of other things that can be motivating us to do great work. And this is just such a good reminder of that to me. Yeah. Anything else about that? Keeping motivated and optimistic? That was your question, Bianca. I'm wondering if there was any other thoughts you have there.
Yeah, I think definitely on that like optimism piece is that, you know, I think, you know, sometimes folks think that, you know, your assets or your logos are the ways that your values can show up. And I think being able to see it in being able to leverage technology to tell that wider story of your values, of the things that are important to you, of the way that your company just values certain things, certain topics. I think that to me definitely resonated. Let's see. I love how Ridwell builds just tells you so much about them. So I think even just how you build and how does what you build, how you build say what does that say about you? So I definitely really appreciated that aspect of the way, yeah, like just the ways in which their build represents their values, which represents their desire for impact. And it's all connected. It's all connected.
Yeah, exactly. It is all connected, and that motivation is so important to like affect those tiny changes that over time can have huge impacts. And I think Earth Day's coming up in a few weeks too. So timely on this. I didn't even think about that one. So let's go to our last video where we just asked a great question, which we asked in most startups, which is what's next for Ridwell?
Folks always like to know, like what's next for Ridwell? Like what, like you're doing so much already, but like what is next for Ridwell?
I think the, you know, what's next is taking this playbook that we're perfecting in our current markets and duplicating that in as many cities as possible. So anyone that hears this that's interested, you can go to our website, you can put in your email address and your zip code, and we let the demand and the data tell us where to go next. You know, we're not going to just show up in a city or a town where no one cares. We're going to go to where people care. And so if you care, put your email address in and you'll be the first to know. And before we launch in new markets and start our service, we offer free pickups for items like plastic film and styrofoam. And so you can test out what we're doing beforehand. And of course we use text message all along the way. I'd say reach out. If you're watching this and you have a friend or family member, you work at someone that is at a nonprofit and can use utensils from takeout packages, or if the nonprofit that can use loose diapers because it's a diaper bank, like everyone has all this stuff in their closet, and we're here to unlock that stuff and get it to people that can use it. And we only know if you exist if you reach out. And the same thing with people that are curious about us. You know, I don't want to inundate Amanda's team, but like anyone can email us and say, what do I do with this thing? And we will answer your question for you, because our goal isn't to sign up more members. Our goal isn't to be in 100 cities. Our goal is to help people waste less. And we can do that through the information that we provide, and we can do it through the service that we offer as well.
Just hearing more about y'all, I'm just like, oh, I see why everyone looks so happy and chill. I was like, I get it. I understand. No, yeah. I also understand why, you know, why Alex was just so excited. Alex was like, Ridwell this, Ridwell that, and Ridwell. And I was like, who is Ridwell? Like, we must find out. So I'm excited that I got to finally get to know Ridwell, you know, up close and personal, and really learn more about like that story, the journey, you know, what's next. So I get the excitement, Alex. I understand the Ridwell excitement.
Well, I mean, come on. I work at Twilio, so whenever I get a text message from someone now, I reply. I got to see what's going on. And then I check if it's a Twilio message too. And like, I was like, Twilio number. And I reply, yes. It's just, I love it. So, yeah.
It's exciting to to meet anyone that's a member too, because that we talk about things that make make everyone happy. Like you could be having the worst day. It could be pouring down rain. I remember days where it's pouring down rain. I was the first driver out making pickups, and the excitement and enthusiasm of someone that's on their first pickup, like there's no way you can leave those conversations and be in a bad mood, because you're making someone's day. And it's very rare that, at least from an operations perspective, you can make someone's day and actually talk to that person. It's so fulfilling. It's one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done in my life.
The one thing that I noticed about this clip more than anything else, because there's so much great stuff in there as we're closing out, but Bianca came into this being like, cool, we're going to do an interview. And then you can see in her energy, in your energy, Bianca, that last question, you were so excited about this company because they're doing so much cool stuff. And I think some of the people in chat are seeing that as well, that this is just when you got an exciting company, it's easy to get excited about it.
Oh yeah. And I think I loved how even in that clip I was like, Alex was so excited about y'all in recycling. And I'm like, okay, Alex, I didn't say that to your face. So, vulnerable moment here. But I think as I was talking to them, I'm like, oh, wow, they're doing amazing work. There's such a thoughtfulness in the things that they're doing. There's such a just love and care for their customers. And it just felt like a warm hug. And I think, who doesn't want to see someone like that win? And I think just feeling excited that whether they were leveraging Twilio to help them do that work, and I was just thrilled. And I started to understand the Ridwell hype. So that to me was delightful. The other thing I did want to bring up is that apparently we have another show recommendation for A/B testing. We were, what was it?
The hot one. Someone wants to see hot sauce.
Yes, hot sauce on film.
I'm open to it, but I'm not excited about it.
Not at all. Not at all. But yeah, so I think, we'll recycle, hot sauce bottles.
Oh, we can just be the hosts. Chef Brent has the hot sauce, which means that he needs to eat it. So maybe we'll get Chef Brent sweating here.
And then also maybe the sweater, we'll have sweater shows. We'll have a sweater theme. Maybe we have a day where we have do we have matching sweaters? I don't know, Alex.
I don't know if we have matching sweaters. We have matching Twilio t-shirts.
Yes.
In the videos, I was wearing the t-shirt you're wearing right now.
Oh yeah.
Twilio devs.
Okay.
So that was really exciting. I hope that everybody, I know we have some people in chat get excited about Ridwell too. Go check them out. Thank you to Amanda, David, and Justin for having that conversation with us. I love what Ridwell's doing. I love how they're thinking through customer communications. It just shows that end to end, their values are just so on point. And I'm so glad we get to share that with all of you as well. And we can't wait to highlight more customer experiences that we come across and are awesome. We will be back next week at 2 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, every week for a little while. We're going to be here streaming, chatting with y'all. So be here next time. And I think we're gonna sign off with that. That was really exciting. I'm so glad we got to share that with everybody, and go back and see that interview that was so impactful at the time, and we just get to relive it. And that was so much fun.
Totally. And then also we tried something new today. So definitely we welcome your feedback, your thoughts, and again, meet us back here again next Tuesday at 2. But we'd love to hear just your feedback on just the things that we're trying, the things that we're testing, the things that you're excited about. So keep us, we want a two-way conversation,
Yes. We talked so much about it. We got to make it happen.
Indeed.
Cool. Thank you all. We'll see you back here next week.
Hey everyone, my name is Ricky, and I'm a developer advocate at Twilio. Over the past 16 years, Twilio's developer experience has changed a lot. And while my colleagues and I on the developer relations team have heard your feedback on social media and in person at the events that we're showing up to, I wanted to create an opportunity for anybody who's building with Twilio to let us know what you think. We genuinely want to know what you, the people who are building with Twilio, think about us. And in order to figure it out, we've created a survey, and it's going to be open until May 31st, 2024. It's going to close at midnight Pacific Standard Time. So if you need a little bit of time, feel free, open up a tab, give it a little bit of time to simmer, but don't wait too long. The best way for us to meet and hopefully exceed your expectations is to know what you think about us in 2024. So what are you waiting for? The link is in the description, and we can't wait to hear what you, the builders, want us to build.